Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football. The fellas are taking a deep dive into this Iowa offense heading into 2023, and it's a massive storyline in the Big Ten West. You take a look at teams that can play for a Big Ten championship. Every single year, the Iowa Hawkeyes have been in it, and you know what you're going to get on the defensive side of the ball. Phil Parker, one of the best defensive coordinators in the country, continuing to pump out top 10 defenses nationally. Now, the question is heading into 2023, and it is the money year for this Iowa offense, is how does it get better in 2023? Because if it does, this is going to be a really, really good team heading into the fall. Now, before we do again, just want to say thank you to you guys and the Iowa fans. Y'all have been absolutely awesome. You know we love talking Big Ten football, throwing some Big Ten wrestling, some Iowa wrestling in there as well. You guys have shown a ton of love. So if you do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. But more importantly, love to hear from you guys in the comment section. Has to do with the Iowa offense. Telling us some players that are going to be stepping up, some names that we should watch. Again, appreciate you guys rocking with the boys. Dill, I'm going to kick this one off to you. This has been your job the last couple of days, is diving into this Iowa offense and figuring out how does it get going in the right direction in 2023.
You know, a lot of people are definitely going to say, oh, it's the quarterback play, and Petrus and company, they struggled mightily, obviously. But when you look at this Iowa team, I think it starts and stops with being able to be physical and run the football. And you look at last year, with a very good running back in Caleb Johnson, they run the ball for 3 yards of play. That's not even in the ballpark of what this Iowa program needs to do. And that's, to me, what needs to essentially improve is this offensive line needs to get back to hammering teams like they could when Iowa was like kind of very competitive.
I agree. As like I watch a lot of Big Ten football. Obviously, I've watched a lot of Iowa football. That offensive line last year, and even the year before, where Tyler Linderbaum pretty much carried that offense. That was not a great offensive line, and Tyler Linderbaum kind of just dominated. This group in 2022, it just was not what you're used to seeing as an Iowa offense, and that's kind of where it starts. And I guess I'd ask you the question. I have a few ideas of how it could get better, but heading into 2023, a lot of the same names that you saw starting in 2022, how does this group get better?
I mean, the big thing is you're returning the bulk of it. And I love that they're adding Parker DeJean at that right tackle spot, because that was probably their major weakness. I mean, you look in pass pro, they were getting beat on that side constantly. But fundamentally, I think the issue is like this team, I think, can move guys. You see when they fire off the ball, they can move defensive linemen around, but just not being sound, not being responsible for your gaps. They were allowing a lot of penetration and a lot of negative runs, I thought, like a stunning amount. So I think it starts with that, like gaining that experience. I think physically they can do it. I think they're big, powerful players, but it will be about just being more sound, being able to run that scheme more effectively and be responsible for their gaps, play in and play out, because that's where it felt like they were breaking down.
And I feel like why you're optimistic about it getting better, at least from my point of view, is you're returning a lot of these guys, and there's a difference between like Michigan State returning a lot of guys who are going to be 5th and 6th year guys versus returning guys who are going to be 3rd and 4th year guys. You see a lot more progression in those 3rd and 4th years than a 5th year guy coming back for a COVID 6th year, where it's like, all right, we know kind of what you are. Are you going to take that many steps in the right direction going into the 6th year? So from a development standpoint, like I certainly can see this offensive line taking some steps while you add some depth in the transfer portal. Really did want to just say the name Rusty Fath. If you see what he looks like an Iowa offensive lineman to a T. Now, the run game and the offensive line, that needs to get better. And if it does, I mean, you get a quarterback in Cade McNamara who, you noted maybe Spencer Petras, like he wasn't good. I'm not going to die on the hill of Spencer Petras playing good football last year. But Cade McNamara, when you saw him playing his best ball for Michigan 2021, a quarterback that led Michigan to a Big Ten title, we're Michigan fans, and we haven't seen that in a decade. And Cade McNamara was the quarterback to do so. Dill, I think the offensive line running the ball, it starts with that. And if you can get that run game going and give Cade time, I think he can be a really solid quarterback for this group.
And that's the thing. Like, yeah, Cade McNamara is not going to be like your Heisman winning hero ball player. That's not his game. But again, if we're talking like if they can get Caleb Johnson moving and he's a star, I think LaShawn Williams is very good. If that unit can play really good football and they can open up the play action, especially with those tight ends who are very talented, that's where Cade McNamara is going to thrive, is because he's not going to miss the throws. I mean, you look, yeah, the running game was bad, but Spencer Petras and whoever else has been playing quarterback for the last 2 years,
Yeah, but Iowa doesn't need that in their court. You know, like there's never been when Iowa's offense is humming. It's not because you got Bryce Young back there. It's just you need a quarterback, and like you said, Cade McNamara is not going to turn the ball over, not going to put your defense in bad spots, and he's also a guy that when the throw's there, he's going to hit it. Like we've seen him play. He's a very consistent quarterback that I think is really like when Cade McNamara hit the transfer portal. I think I texted you immediately and was like, Iowa Hawkeyes. Like it makes so much sense. And I do want to touch on Caleb Johnson, who I think is really, really good. And if they can block for Caleb Johnson, I really do think this could be one of the better. You've seen a lot of good running backs wear the Hawkeye helmet. And Caleb Johnson can be one of the better ones. So you got the run game going. You have Cade McNamara back there. And then you finally have some pass catchers. And I'm not saying, like, you had Laporta, Luke Lachey, but the wide receivers were just – I mean, at certain points, they were walk-on wide receivers out there. I think the pass catcher group, starting with the tight ends, is going to be really good too.
And that's the thing you mentioned. I mean, Luke Lachey was awesome last year. Eric All going to come in and replace, I think, a lot of what Sam Laporta kind of brought. So you're going to have that same really good tight end play, I believe. And I don't think
Can I add one thing on Eric All real quick? Is he's also a phenomenal blocker, and that's really going to help. And again, another Michigan guy that we've seen play, and we've seen play a lot. Like both Cade McNamara and Eric All, they're not guys transferring because they're like bad players. Like, yeah, Cade might have lost the spot to JJ. Eric All, like a healthy Eric All is tight end one on this team. Really, really good tight end who, again, gets it done inline blocking, which I think will massively help. And you're going to see a lot of 12 personnel. Sorry, I'll let you keep going, though.
Yeah, no, obviously you need to be able to block as a tight end at Iowa. That's a no question about it kind of thing. But just to touch on the wideouts real quick, I mean, you do bring in Caleb Brown.
Love it.
Haven't really seen what he can do yet at the college level, but you do know he's supremely talented in a way you rarely see at Iowa, considering what they typically recruit out of the high school ranks. I mean, Nico Reganey, he's as tough as they come. He's just so solid for this Iowa team. So I think the weapons between those two wideouts and maybe Deontay Vines can give him something, or Seth Anderson in the portal. But I think those two, especially, and then the two tight ends, I think this team has enough weapons to be tough. But again, it will all come down. It will all be set up by how they can run the football. And that's kind of what I'm looking for, again, just to kind of close this out, if you will, is that unit needs to just be better. And it's been a long time now.
Yeah, I do agree. Like, I think all the hype, and we haven't really touched on Brian Ferentz, but the big storylines are you have Cade McNamara, who is a massive upgrade to Spencer Petras. I'm not going to argue that. Certainly is. Still have Brian Ferentz calling the plays. But I do think it starts up front. Like, I think the biggest struggles you saw with Iowa the last 2 years is it just was not what it normally is.
And they can't go to like the air raid scheme. Like, no. Yeah, I know you added some good pieces in the passing attack, but it's still Iowa football. I think you still need to play to that identity, because when you get away from that, I think the things could really fall off the tracks here. This is a good program. They just need to get back to being able to bully teams around, push teams around, be tough at the line of scrimmage.
And they really can. Like, it'd be unfair to ask this team to, like, completely change their offensive scheme, because for the last 2 decades, Iowa has recruited for that scheme. And so you can't just, like, 0 to 180 switch what you're doing, because all your personnel, whether they panned out or not, it's too, like, we're going to run the football, we're going to be physical. You're going to see a lot of 12 personnel. You're going to see a lot of the run game. Like, don't get it twisted. This is going to be the Iowa offense still. But now you have Cade McNamara, who can maybe give you a little bit more threat down the field. Now you bring in a guy like Caleb Brown, who probably the most talented wide receiver for Iowa, and maybe since Charlie Jones. But
you just need to be steady in the passing attack. Again, it's just going to be about hitting the open guys, and they haven't done that, and they haven't run the ball. So it's obviously led to 2 very, very down years for this offense. But again, it looks to me like they have the personnel. I'm just looking for this offensive line to play very consistent, fundamentally sound games. Because again, I think they're big. I think they're strong guys. They're like physically those Iowa type players. They just need to be conscious of their gaps, not let up as much penetration. I think this team will be fine.
Yeah, I again, this is a sleeper team. And as I look through the Big Ten West, it's like you just don't know what to do. But I mean, even if you saw the Iowa team like be really solid, like a solid team last year when they couldn't move the ball on offense. That offense takes some steps in the right direction. Like, this is a team that really has a chance to play in Indy at the end of the year and win the Big Ten West. So Really fun team to talk about. You know we love talking Iowa football. Hey, Iowa wrestling. Let's chop it up about some Iowa wrestling in the comment section too. Again, appreciate you guys rocking with the boys. If you do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel, and we'll talk to y'all later.